Hello my grandbabies. We are in a time where quality is overshadowed by numbers, or in the name of Timothy Chalamet, statistics, especially in the music business. Of course art matters, but in a world of notoriety and virality, it's strictly a numbers game. And while it's been like this for a very long time, I agreed with this numbers game phrase. Not that it's right, but because it's the truth. For example, award shows, they only recognize what is popular. If a certain song isn't commercially successful, it is labeled a flop by the majority, and treated inferior even if the material itself is a masterpiece or creatively inclined, that thy creative cup be runneth over. The numbers idiom has been a constant truth for many years. But nowadays, with the crazy and strange lens these artists go to in order to secure number ones, has changed my perspective, where I have to ask the question, is it still a numbers game or a humiliation game, as artists are becoming more desperate and obsessed in their pursuit of high sales, especially when it comes to album sales. Moreover, in the name of getting number one albums consecutively, certain artists, including the legends, are doing just about anything to stay on top, and it's reached a point where their efforts reek of desperation, and it's downright sad to watch. So for this video, let's go down the road of backstabbing, internet fights, and other desperate tactics, all in the name of apparently not getting the dreaded number 2 spot. Proving that it's not just a numbers game anymore, but a humiliating one. In this video, let's also explore where did this numbers obsessed mindset come from? Where is it going? And will it ever go away? I am Don, your pop culture boy. Let's get into it.
Catastrophic.
Was it always like this? Now, to say the music industry has always prioritized sales or high numbers is correct, because it wouldn't be an industry without being hyperfixated on sales to be profitable and a main industry in the world like it is today. That being said, when we compare the focus on sales prior to now, it's completely different, as it's way more vicious in its marketing strategies. And I'm using the term industry now in reference to label execs, or the ones calling the shots, even though artists, which I will get to them in a bit, and its other players such as fans make up the industry as well. So to answer the question, was it always like this? The answer is simply no. The industry adapted a more sales-obsessed module as it slowly shifted from the jukebox era, the physical era of CDs and cassettes, live concerts, to an extent, to the digital download age, the iTunes store. But I'd even go back further and say the industry as a collective mainly began being obsessed with numbers with the inception of the charts, such as Billboard's Hot 100 and 200 album charts, which started the race of being number one in an official institutionalized sense, which started as far back as 1913 with a list of best-selling sheet music coined last week's 10 best sellers among the popular songs, which I know is a mouthful, but it wasn't until 1936 we got a chart system structured like the one we have today, where Billboard published its first pop chart based on record sales that was called the 10 Best Records for Week Ending. I know, sounds like an overworded mess. Anyway, the list, it listed the top 10 selling records of 3 leading record companies as reported by the companies themselves. And as that slowly developed into the charts we have today and getting more accessible to everyone, the industry and all that makes up the industry became interested or motivated by sales and high chart positions. To further elaborate, in 1913 and prior, sales were mainly focused on by labels. Not a lot of fans were that interested, in comparison to now, where fans organize streaming events and campaigns on social media in order for their faves garnering the number one album in the US. Back then, if a song or album underperformed, the general public wasn't that fixated on it. They didn't even know. Fans cared about their favorite artists for sure, but the focus was mainly on the music itself and live performances. Only a selected few were obsessed with the charts back then. The early iterations of the charts were initially tools for industry insiders, not the public. Fans didn't equate charts and high sales to success. Rather, crowd turnouts in clubs and concerts, and if a song influenced them to write letters to radio stations requesting certain songs getting played. The fixation began to take hold or increase in the late 1950s with the Billboard Hot 100, which gave a clear weekly snapshot of song popularity. Side note, I think payola, which became a quiet standard in the 50s, is a result of the obsession concerning the charts as well, as radio plays substantially influenced the Hot 100. Now, as music became more commercialized in the 60s and 70s, labels and media hyped chart success to drive sales, especially during the rock and pop eras. By the 1980s and 1990s, with MTV and the rise of blockbuster albums, chart performance became a badge of cultural relevance. Fans, particularly of pop and hip-hop, started equating high chart positions with quality or status, fueled by media coverage and artist rivalries. The digital age amplified this. From the 2000s onward, that's when everyone was taken over with mass psychosis, as real-time data from iTunes, streaming platforms like Spotify, and social media made sales and chart rankings more visible. As mentioned earlier, fandoms, especially for artists like Taylor Swift or BTS, began organizing events to boost streams and sales to secure high chart positions, turning it into a competitive sport. Billboard's methodology, shifts incorporating streaming and digital sales, further tied fan engagement to chart outcomes. According to Billboard.com, December 11, 2010, as fan armies became a force online, the Social 50 chart debuts, reflecting the top acts based on social media fan reaction. The first act at number 1 was Rihanna, thanks to her fan base known as the Navy, or Rihanna Navy. Also, I don't want to exclude myself from this discourse, as I too am somewhat fixated on sales mainly because of the channel, but when I was younger, I never cared about numbers per se, but I was obsessed with like chart positions, I'm not gonna lie, and I did place emphasis on it where if you got, number 1, then you had to be the best or of quality. But as I got older, I realized, I'm now 80 years old, and right. I've now realized that it's just not true. But I will say this, starting this channel, it's also made me like not place so much emphasis on sales and only do it when it's absolutely necessary, because it's really and truly not the end all be all in music.
Okay. People also say that I got a BBL, right?
Music isn't making these artists a lot of money. Now, to clarify, music on its own never really made artists a lot of money to begin with. Only a few selected artists were making a lot of money solely from music or being fairly compensated. And these are, of course, the big artists who I'm talking about here, who understood the business early on or were able to renegotiate the rates in their contracts. When the music industry crashed in the 2000s due to piracy online, i.e. Napster and LimeWire, which gave your computer a virtual STD, the business hasn't been the same financially, especially for recording artists, who are still feeling the effects today, even though it isn't spoken about how revenue from music has increased significantly because of streaming. But like I said, in spite of this, artists aren't making money from music, which is consumed mostly through streaming, which is also the cheapest income stream for these artists. Right now, it's getting harder for certain seasoned big name acts to chart as easily due to more competition, generational factors in the streaming era, and it takes more effort to chart as streaming points has the lowest value when Billboard tally these songs and albums. And that's if most of your plays are coming from streams, of course. And also, that's not to say that you cannot get a number 1 from streams only, as you can, but you just have to be really, really huge, like a huge name to do that. But with that in mind, artists are getting more desperate and doing things that are humiliating when we consider how they used to promote their music back in the day compared to now. Recently, Mariah Carey released her 16th album, Here for It All. It had that one song with Shinsia that I like. The album also features Kehlani, Anderson .Paak, and Clark Sisters. To promote the album, Mariah Carey made a surprise guest appearance on Kai Cenat's Twitch livestream during his month-long Mafia 3 subathon on September 3rd, 2025. The event, which started on September 1st, aimed to raise funds for building a school in Nigeria while pushing for 1 million subscribers. Now, here's why this was humiliating. It's Mariah Carey promoting her album on a streamer's platform. Now, I don't want to knock Kai, and if it comes off that way, trust that's not what I'm trying to do. If you never watch his streams, God bless you, because it's just a bunch of niggas. White people, cover your ear. But it's just a bunch of niggas doing all type of crazy activities, huddled around a camera, talking about, thank you for the gifted, thank you for the gifted. Chat, chat, chat. Win, 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 WWW. Again, I don't want to knock the format because it is a format, the streamer format, but what the fuck was Mariah Carey doing on there surrounded by a bunch of 20-year-olds in wife beaters?
Oh my God, bro.
That don't even know that they were in the presence of one of the greatest singers of all time. And while I'm sure Kai himself was genuinely excited, and it's also impressive he got her on his live stream, but most of them in the room did not care nor understood that Mariah is not only a great artist, but a grown-ass woman who doesn't have the time for the extra shit that they tend to expect from their other guests who are, either younger, clout chasers, or closely aligned to streaming. Now, here's where things backfired and bit Mariah in the ass. During Kai Cenat's subathon on September 23rd, 2025, Talil, who is a frequent collaborator of Kai, appeared alongside him for a live Hot Ones segment hosted by Sean Evans. Evans prompted Talil with a question about the worst celebrity guest so far in the event's high-profile lineup that already included Lizzo, Kim Kardashian, Ray J, and many more. Talil immediately named Mariah Carey, explaining that her September 3rd appearance felt purely promotional and lacked the chaotic, over-the-top energy expected on the stream. He said, "Worst celebrity that has come to Mafia 3? Mariah Carey. I feel like her intention was just to promote her album, and I understand that business is business. But what was the exchange for us? She didn't want to sing, she didn't want to dance. If you want to come on Mafia, come have fun. Be vulnerable." Like, what did you expect from a 56-year-old artist who doesn't even walk, if she doesn't even feel like it at her own concert, who makes money off a 90s Christmas song every year? Now, Mariah Carey should have never gone on there, in my opinion, due to the fact that she knows Kai's audience is young, that is used to clout chasing antics from the likes of Ray J and Kim Kardashian. Just two completely different audiences. Because we are in desperate times now, that's why we continue to see artist link-ups with these streamers such as Kai. It's one thing when it's the younger artists such as Tyla or I Spice who need the attention. Mariah really didn't need the exposure, as her album didn't and wasn't even going to sell over 100,000 copies in the first week, as that's what is expected for artists who are this far into their career. Furthermore, all Mariah have to do is keep singing them old songs and everything will be alright. Or release new music and don't even talk about it. We don't care about the new music, but I do like that Shinsia song though. I think we'll continue to see this trend of artists embarrassing themselves to sell 2 extra copies, especially when we consider how artists kind of hate traditional media right now and rather go on streamers' platforms who won't ask them critical questions. This is why we see Drake's appearance on Aiden's stream and Bobby's boring ass podcast.
You got a BBL and you got your abs sculpted?
Did you? Do I have a fatty?
I didn't look at your body when you walked in here.
Do you want me to 360?
I don't.
So then, like, if it didn't stand out to you,
No, me personally, I've never
I
looked
think
at
that
even
pic
thought
just like I think it
BBL.
was just like I came from the gym. I was sweaty in that pic. Maybe I went on Facetune and like put like details up, you know, and you can like make it.
Don't even admit to that much. Then
sorry.
you
Just being
facetuned
honest.
it.
Yeah, I was like maybe I like hyped.
Nicki Minaj doing interviews with Funny Marco.
Fuck. Motherfucker. Greatest woman. You alright? Huh? You okay?
Nicki also appeared on Kai's stream as well to promote her Pink Friday 2 album. She even went on IG Live with Kevin Samuels before he passed in conjunction with the release of her song Do We Have a Problem. Now, what's ironic about this is if you'd ask these celebrities if they'd do these press runs with streamers and social media personalities in the past, they would laugh in your face. So it's very interesting to see how the tides have turned. Doja Cat, who I recently made a video about, go watch it. Her album V, which is out now, not sponsored. Prior to its release, after it was announced, V was projected to move only 56,000 album equivalents in its debut, which isn't that bad, but it's 16,000 fewer copies compared to her last album Scarlet, which sold 72k in its debut. Doja Cat responded on Twitter with these posts making fun of the situation. Like with this tweet, she said, "Stream my album to heal the nerve ending on your clit." Or this post where she is in a plane looking crazy, captioned, "Me tallying up all my numbers." And this tweet that reads, "Me looking under the couch crevices for some streams." And as you can see, she's on the ground searching for some streams, apparently. Obviously, Doja Cat is just joking. She's just trolling here to make us laugh and see that she does not care. But let's not act like she isn't also doing this to go viral, spreading awareness of her album being out, or make her kittens assemble to purchase and stream her album to get higher numbers and potentially making it debut higher on the charts, because she knows her label is probably looking at her funny, as this marks a consecutive downward trend for her, and the smaller your sales get, the more your budget shrinks for future projects. First week numbers have become its own staple and spectacle in pop culture, where it's anticipated if a project will do good or bad. And the sentiments has only gotten more toxic and competitive. But I remember in the 2000s when first week sales discourse started to be its own driver, had a friendly sportsmanship tone. In 2007, this friendly sales competition happened with 50 Cent's Curtis album and Kanye West's Graduation. Both rappers released on the same date, September 11, leading to a big high-profile sales competition for the #1 spot on the Billboard 200. Kanye won with 957,000 albums sold in the first week, compared to 50 Cent's 691,000 albums sold in its first week. This beef was largely a marketing push, with 50 Cent even wagering, he'd quit solo albums if he lost, which, he did lose and he did honored. It marked a turning point in hip hop, somewhat shifting from gangster rap dominance towards a more experimental vibe or sound. For the pair at least, such as 50's AO Technology featuring Justin Timberlake and Kanye West's Stronger. Now, this type of camaraderie, if you want to call it that, never happened again. Instead, we have Drake filing a lawsuit accusing Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, streams being botted after he was defeated in their beef and couldn't stand the fact that he was being outstreamed for once in recent times. Now, his lawyers did remove that claim from the lawsuit, but still very sales obsessed. And also, let's be clear, although 50 Cent and Kanye West's, fake beef, while it was this friendly competition, it also kind of spiked the obsession as well. If we really look at it We also saw this sales-obsessed dilemma play out recently with Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, who have been beefing since 2017. Tensions between the women would steadily rise to new levels as Cardi B's second album, Am I the Drama, inched closer to its September 19, 2025 release, with rhetoric circulating on social media that Cardi would outsell Nicki's 2023's Pink Friday 2 first week sales, which debuted at number 1 in the US with 228,000 copies in its first week. On April 1st, a video with audio from Cardi B venting to her fans, which are her therapists at this point on Spaces, started circulating on Twitter. In the video, she was hyping herself up while stating her album would outsell and that she wouldn't flop. So there's an album. So you're talking about no album with a what? Y'all don't even want me to drop that album because y'all gonna be fucking crying. Crying cause I'm gonna outsell. I'ma have hits. I'ma be on top. That's a fact. Y'all never watch. Afraid of y'all parents when they say you gotta be careful what you wish for because what you'll be wishing for is not what you gonna want. The fuck? Y'all, I understand when my fans ask for my album because duh, but when my ops ask for my album, like why? What do you think is gonna happen? What do you think is gonna happen when I drop my album? You think it's gonna flop? You know it's not gonna flop. So stop. While Cardi never explicitly says she would outsell Nicki Minaj or Pink Friday 2, most took it that way. Because who else is she talking about, as no one else but Nicki can compete with her in regards to numbers. But in the end, Cardi B's I Am the Drama, while it did debut at number 1, it sold 200 copies, 28,000 copies short from Pink Friday 2, reigniting tensions over sales comparisons, with Nicki mocking Cardi B's number and Cardi B responding with personal attacks. Nicki responded stating mocking the shortfall, calling Cardi B Barney Dangerous, and referencing her album's $4.99 promotional price, even though she's done the same in the past, which Cardi also pointed out. Cardi also responded with disses targeting Nicki's family, example editing a pig wig onto her brother Jelani Miraj's mugshot. To say this Twitter back and forth, all in the name of sales, was nasty is an understatement. It literally continued for like 2 to 3 days. Both sides even mentioned each other's children. Nicki Minaj called Cardi B's daughter Culture a vulture and ugly amongst other things. And Cardi B claimed Nicki's son is a non-verbal who cannot spell his name. Like I said, this went on for days, so I'm really touching the surface here. At one point, Nicki started demanding her barbs to go stream her music before she starts cussing them out too. Nicki Minaj has a history of being chart-driven or sales-obsessed. Back in 2018, when Billboard reported that her album Queen debuted at number 2 with 185,000 equivalent units, behind Travis Scott's Astroworld in its second week at number 1 with over 200,000 copies sold. That situation caused Nicki to accuse Travis Scott and then baby Stormi, Travis's daughter, along with Kylie Jenner, of inflating his numbers through merchandise bundles and tour passes, even though she did the same thing as well.
It's just what's right and what's wrong, what's fair. I've had a number 2 album and I never cared. It's just that when you have a number 2 album to someone who's selling shirts and merch and selling passes for a tour that's not even announced yet, it feels like you're being tricked. It feels like, you know, someone is playing a game and like beating you at a game, as opposed to just selling music. I want to sell music, right?
Speaking of Travis Scott, or his label rather, made a lot of commotion in 2024 during the re-release of his Days Before Rodeo mixtape, which debuted at number 2, narrowly being beat out of the number 1 spot by Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet. His label, Cactus Jack Records, which is owned by Travis Scott, formally disputed the chart result, alleging inaccuracies in sales counting that cost him the top spot by margin of about 600 to 1,000 units. At the time, Sabrina Carpenter sold 362,000 equivalent units, while Travis Scott sold 361,000 equivalent units. The dispute included claims of 1,291 uncounted sales in the final tracking hours and questioned Billboard/Luminate's indie retail weighing methodology, which they said unfairly boosted Carpenter's numbers. But Luminate stood by its data and the chart was not altered. So Travis Scott did all that crying for nothing. And the thing is, he went number 1 the following week. So what was all that crying for? But just to give a little context, Travis Scott had issues with how Billboard counted Sabrina Carpenter's vinyls, because Billboard take into consideration, more consideration and place more significance on vinyls if it's under the genre of indie and I think rock. But Sabrina Carpenter isn't an indie artist, but I think they did a loophole so that she could get more value on her vinyls. Taylor Swift, who has become notorious for releasing a colossal amount of versions of her albums in a desperate attempt to stay on top of the charts for long periods, shouldn't be a surprise mention. Her Tortured Poets Department album, released last year, spent 17 weeks atop the Billboard 200 chart and has sold so far 8 million copies in the US. While it's undeniable impressive numbers, but her tactic of constantly releasing multiple deluxe versions and collections of the project had pop fans gagging, literally, over the 30+ versions released. Taylor would also get a lot of criticisms as the new versions release would coincide with many artists' projects, blocking them from attaining the number 1 spot on the Billboard 200 album chart. Most notably, she blocked Billie Eilish, which really upset Billie's fans, sparking rumors of the two beefing behind the scenes. Amplified by Billie Eilish's manager reposting a tweet accusing Swift of preventing other artists from shining. Also, some interpreted Billie's past comments on industry practices, like criticizing excessive vinyl variants for environmental reasons, without naming Taylor Swift, as subtle digs, which doesn't make sense as Billie even called out herself for doing the same thing. Nonetheless, people said they had beef. Now, with her recent release, The Life of a Showgirl, already totaling 27 physical variants and 2 digital editions at launch, it's apparent we will have a repeat of 2024. Miley Cyrus, who released her 9th studio album, Something Beautiful, had this to say when asked what's the biggest thing she's learned during the making of the project.
About yourself. I think what I've learned about myself that I really respect is not settling. This record, I had a vision, and there is no statistic, there's no number, there's no chart that could ever tell me that this record was not a success, because I had a vision and I made it a reality. And in not one part of the process did I cut any corners, or did I make it easy for myself, or in times now where everything moves fast and it's about the quantity and not quality, I never lost sight for 1 second of the meaning of what this record meant to me and the medicine that I thought it could be, not only for myself, the healing, but really for anyone who took a moment to hopefully enjoy it. Beautiful.
I can totally understand or try to see through the lens of the major act of today, who are in this very overstimulated industry that is constantly demanding spectacles out of every release. While I find it humiliating considering where artists and the industry is coming from, I can still see where they are coming from with their crying and attempts of trying to stay relevant by releasing deluxes a day after the standard edition, or multiple versions, bonus tracks, incorporating bundles, making 10 TikToks a day, doing things they wouldn't usually do in order to be number 1, because I cannot imagine it feeling good when your album doesn't sell in this over sensationalized digital era where low album sales is all the rave. That being said, they are losing sight of what is really important. The only thing that can maybe curb this sales obsessed appetite is if more fans and non-fans of music stop putting major emphasis on sales online, reverting back to the days when music being good was the driver and was all that mattered. Back when it was important, when the music drove us to dance, but with the inclusion of social media, chart data, which also drives the spectacle of both flop and successful albums, and the weird sense of community these conversations drives that also reward us with likes and views, while a part of me is like, take it away. Do I really want that? Do you really want that? Because I have to admit, despite the negatives, it does provide transparency and is revealing how really big these artists are, while exposing the power we have as fans. And maybe that's a good trade-off. What do you think? I am Don, your pop culture boy, and I will see you in the next one.
Irony. Don't you just love it?